thumbed through the history, and then it appears to me that at one point the church had been paid off. However, the church went back in debt over a tune that you would hear when it's read, over $400,000. Therefore, we inherited another mortgage. And in some kind of way, I know my wife and I have been praying, God, help us to pay off our mortgage because we're going to have to retire one day. You hear what I say, Elder? But some kind of way, we end up getting more mortgages that we can't pay off before we retire. Oh, help us, Holy Ghost. I need you to pray for me now. I remember talking with Vera, and Vera threw out some question, and the question that she threw out to the congregation was, if you had $1 million, what would you do with it? I don't know whether you remember her saying that. And of course, everyone responded what they would, well, most of them, not everyone, because I didn't respond. What they would do, obviously, you're gonna take God's money from it, the tithe and the offering, if you don't want it to be blowed on. If you want the remainder of $800,000, if it's 10 plus 10, to go further than that million would go, you got to return faithfully to God. Are you listening to me? And so some kind of way Vera came to me later and say, now, Pastor, substance, I didn't hear what you had to say. I said, well, you know, if I had $1 million, then of course, obviously, I got to return faithful tithe and offering to the Lord. But I say, then I still wouldn't have enough money to pay off the mortgages that we have. She said, what? I said, well, I would have enough to pay off the mortgages. And I pay off some, but not all the mortgages that we have. But I say to myself, as we have a vision for God's church, I want God's church mortgage to be retired even before my mortgage is retired. You hear what I'm just saying? I just can't be comfortable in God's house, realizing that God's house has a mortgage. I can be trying to pay our mortgage off, baby doll, and not be trying to pay off God's mortgage for his house. I'm so glad. I'm so glad, Pastor, that the members join in with God's vision of having his church paid off and dedicated. We'll talk about what's going to happen after later. We'll talk about what's going to happen after later. Later happened. The wife says, sometimes, honey, you think people are walking with you as you share things, but you leave stuff out, and they don't even know what you're talking about. So maybe I better watch you so that I can stay on track. I can stay on track, because a whole lot goes on in my mind, and I say, well, I know that my wife understands what I'm saying, and she says, well, what are you talking about? And I say, well, did you understand this? Well, no, you didn't say that before you say this. So I'm hoping that you're praying for me. That's why I say I hope you're praying for me out there. The temple and its dedication. The temple and its dedication. Well, if you really want to get the whole gist of the message that we were impressed to share with you, which is part of it, because of time, obviously, you can go to your book, Patriarchs and Prophets. Nothing new under the sun. And you can start in chapter 2 and read that in your spare time. That's entitled A Temple and Its Dedication. And as a matter of fact, that went on building of the temple for 7 years. But let me stick with the script as much as I can to try to get through as much as I can get through. The long cherished plan of David to erect a temple to the Lord, Solomon wisely carried it out. We know that David wanted to do it, but because of the sin that he committed, because he turned his back on God for a while, God denied him the privilege of building that temple. But he said then, David said, as you know, that I'm going to make sure that I get all the material, I'm going to get everything together so my son Solomon could do it. So the Lord says for 7 years, Jerusalem was filled with busy workers engaged in Lebanon, the chosen site, and building vast retaining walls and then laying broad foundations and great stones, according to the Bible in the 1 Kings 5:17. Great stones, costly stones, and huge stones, and shaping the heavy timbers bought from the Lebanon forest, and in erecting the magnificent sanctuary. All of that was gathered together now. And then simultaneously going along at the same time with the preparation of wood and stone, to which task thousands, and underline that, thousands, or rather, the task many thousands, she says here, were bending their energies. The manufacture of the furnishing for the temple was steadily progressing under the leadership of Hiram of Tyre. Then she says in 2 Chronicles 2, verse 13, and even 14, a cunning man, talking about Hiram, cunning man, endowed with understanding, skillful to work in gold and silver, and in brass, and in stone, and in iron, and in timber, and purple, and blue, and in fine linen, and in crimson. Thus, as the building on Mount Moriah, which we'll talk about in a minute. Mount Moriah is where this building of this temple took place. Thus, as the building on Mount Moriah was noiselessly, without noise, upreared with stone made ready before it was brought thither, so that there was neither hammer nor axe nor any tool of iron heard in the house while it was being built. Isn't that something? 1 Kings 6, 7. And then reading on in chapter 4, verse 19, the beautiful fittings were perfected according to the patterns committed by David to his son, all the vessels that were of the house of God. These were prepared and they were brought there and put in place, so that you didn't have any noise going on. You didn't have any hammer going on. You didn't have any axe going on, any iron tools going on and making noise. These included, obviously, the altar of incense, the table of showbread, the candlestick, and lamps that represent God's presence, obviously, and the bread represents his presence, because there was a table of showbread and the altar of incense and the candlestick and lamps with the vessels and instruments connected with the ministration of the priests in the holy place. All of gold, and that was perfect gold, according to 2 Chronicles 4 and verse 21. There, of course, was the brazen furniture, the altar burnt offering, the great laver supported by 12 oxen, and lavers of smaller size with many other vessels. In the plain of Jordan did the king cast them in the clay ground between Succoth and Zarethan. 2 Chronicles 4:17. These furnishings were provided in abundance, that there should be no lack. All surpassing beauty and unrivaled splendor was the palatial building. This building that was like a palace, resembling a palace, with Solomon and his associate erected for God and his worship. This place is a place that has been designed with everything for the worship